Hello friends, and welcome back to my crafty space. My name is Crystal, and in today's video, I am going to be creating a story spread about my daughter using the speech bubble background cut file from Paige Evans. In addition to the speech bubble cut file, I'm also using primarily the Bloom Street collection from Paige. So I've got one of the cards from the card collection here. I really loved this love heart right here, and I'm thinking about using that as an embellishment. And then I've also got paper number 11 and paper number 14. So 14 has this pink and purple and yellow stripe that I really like with this particular collection, or with this photo and with the background or the cut file there. And the back side is the yellow, so I'm just going to be using the striped. And then paper number 11 has all of these seed packet looking cards that you can cut apart. So I will possibly be using this to create some of my own ephemera to add onto the page. I'm not totally sure that I'm going to do that yet, but just in case I do use it, I wanted you to see ahead of time the papers that I am going to be using. Finally, I have a little packet of some leftover floral and leafy bits. These were from the Horizon collection, so these are a little bit older and just stuff that I had in my stash. So I'm going to see if I can get some of those used up here as well. So what I did to get this started is I first resized this cut file so that it will fit inside my 6x8 album. This is the size of the page protector, so you can see when I put it on here that the whole file is going to fit on. I will likely offset it to the left so that when it's hole punched, it won't disturb any of the speech bubbles themselves. Then inside of Photoshop, I created some like circle and some squares that measured the individual speech bubbles themselves. So for instance, I would have made a little text box that was roughly, an 1.25 inches by 1.5 inches, and that would be this one. And then once I had those all made, I filled in some text. I did a little interview with my daughter, so you can see it here. And these are what I'm going to use to back each of these speech bubbles. So I will just cut these apart and use those to back onto here. Once I have that done, then we'll start to assemble the rest of this as well. So I just wanted to give you that heads up. I will bring you over to the computer just to show you how I went about resizing this, just in case you are curious how I did that. And then we'll come back over here and get to work on today's spread.
All right, friends, so to get started on today's spread and today's cut file, the first thing I did was to open up my Silhouette software here and open up the speech bubble background cut file from Paige Evans. This cut file is done in an 8.5 by 11 size, and the book that I want to put this in is a 6x8, which if I have this outside of the page protector is basically an 8.25 inch tall by roughly 6.875, but you can vary it a little bit from there wide. So what I'm going to do is click on the cut file to make sure I've got it selected. Then I'm going to grab this box in the bottom right corner and shrink this down until the measurement on the side, which you can see here on the left side of the file where it says 9.529 right now, I'm going to shrink this down until that is at 8.25. So we're just going to go ahead and bring this down. Okay, so now you can see on the side there that my measurement is at 8.248, which is perfect. That's just shy of that 8.25 mark. And then the width of this cut file is 6.332. So that's totally cool, because what that means is that it's unlikely that I will actually hole punch into those speech bubbles. If I do, it's not a big deal because it will cover the whole span of the page, but at the same time, there's a possibility that my hole punches will miss the cut file entirely. So what I'm going to do is print this out or cut this out using a colored cardstock just to help pop it off of the background paper. And then once I have that done, I will meet you back at the craft table to tell you what my next steps are.
All right, so now that we are back over at my craft table, let's go ahead and start getting this page assembled. The first thing I'm going to do is take paper number 14 right here with the pink and yellow and purple stripes, and I'm cutting that down into a full page spread that's going to go outside of a page protector in my 6x8 album. So this is going to be sized for me at 6.875 inches wide by 8.25 inches tall. Once I have that done, I grabbed both the full page photo that's printed at the same size and the background there, and then I just put them together and hole punched them along their edges. That way the holes are already there, and that's going to help me figure out where to place best this speech bubble cut file. So next, what I'm going to do is go ahead and get this cut file backed. I did print out my text here that you can see on some vellum paper, and I thought that this would add a cool texture behind the cut file, but then I could also add this entire thing on top of the pattern and have that poke through a little bit as well. So just a way to add some color in here to give it a little bit of busyness, but also to mute that down by using the vellum. I will say that when I printed off my journaling here, I created text boxes inside of Photoshop that were sized roughly the same as the individual speech bubbles. So I sat down after I cut the file out, I measured out each of those sections, created a text box in Photoshop with the same dimensions, and then used that to add my text in there. What I didn't consider when I was doing that is that I needed to have those text boxes a little bit further apart so that I could actually back it properly with the whole thing. So I ended up having to print off another page of the journaling so that I could back the rest of those files there, the rest of those little bubbles that you can see that don't have anything in them. That is why. So just keep that in mind if this is something that you want to try making for yourself. So I've got most of them, or probably about half of them backed there. And while I was waiting for the text to dry on the vellum, because you do have to wait a little bit for the ink to dry, otherwise it will smear since the vellum is a little bit silkier than most other paper. And it's not even silkier, it's just that it's not as porous, so the ink doesn't sink into the paper, it sits right on top. While I did that, I took one of the cards from the boxed card set from the Bloom collection that had this love heart on top of it. I fussy cut that out of the card, and I'm going to add that onto my photo here as an embellishment for this page. I think it's a really fun way to add embellishments is to cut them out of papers yourself. And then I also love the way that the red and pink and like bluish purple, the stripe on that particular heart mirrors the stripes and the colors that you see on the opposite side. So in the striped paper, but then also in the purple that I used to cut this file out of in the first place. So I think it works really well. I grabbed over my date stamp and I just went ahead and stamped right on the heart itself, which is awesome. That gave me a place to add the date for this spread. And then we're going to stick it right at the top of my photo and trim off the excess. For this spread, what I did for the journaling portion is I actually looked up online. I just Google searched for like interview to ask your kids or questions to ask your kids. And I came up with a list of questions, enough questions anyway, that would fit inside each of these speech bubbles. And then I had Izzy sit down with me one day and I just asked her all of the questions and I wrote down her answers and put them in each of those speech bubbles. So I do have a little bit of the context at the beginning, like a rephrasing of the question and then the answer together so that you know what she was talking about for each of those things. And I think that that was a really fun idea for documenting a story about Izzy that wasn't necessarily event-based. It was just, getting her opinions on certain things. It brings out her personality and then also gives me a really good reminder in the future of things that were important to her way back when. So I think that this will be a fun one to look back on in years to come. Once I had all of those speech bubbles backed, the next thing I needed to do was go ahead and add this entire file onto the striped paper. So I'm going section by section, adding my glue and then sticking it down. And then you'll see I'll flip it back over again, add some more glue to the next rows of speech bubbles and stick that down until I've got everything glued down on the base there. I do have to be fairly quick with this because this Scotch quick dry glue dries extremely fast. So I just am trying to get it on there and get everything down so that it sticks and stays down before it all dries. So we'll just do that, stick this down, and then that is going to complete my cut file. I'll bring over the photo and everything, and then we'll call this one done. All right, friends, that finishes my spread for today. I think this one turned out really fun, super cute. I love having all of these little answers from Izzy regarding the little interview that we did for this spread in particular. I think it was a fun way to document a little bit of her personality on the page for this month. So I hope that you enjoyed seeing how this spread came together and that you feel inspired to use your cut files to help you tell the stories of your life. If you enjoyed this video, I would love a thumbs up down below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can see all of my future crafty videos as well. I'll be back later again this week with some additional process videos. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye, friends.